Chapter 1. Don't make people read. Chapter Purpose. To provide the importance of brevity and organization in business writing and set up the overall theme of this book. I once gave the CFO of a company I was working at a deck I prepared. Before I walked her through it, the first thing I said was, "So the good news, this entire walkthrough is only 2 slides." She genuinely smiled and looked happy, and perhaps even relieved. The most important part of the book is this. In business writing, do not make your reader, audience, read. In business, we don't like to read. We don't. We like to scan at best, and that's on a good day. Allow your reader to scan and look, not read. And yes, I'm well aware of the irony of giving you this advice by asking you to read, I mean scan it. There are a few reasons for this. Number 1, people in business don't have the time, and 2, people in business don't have the patience. As it relates to point 2, I'm allowed to say this being in industry. Business people really don't have all that much patience, and the more experience and older business people get, the less patience they have. If you're in your 20s within perhaps 5 or so years experience, there's a good chance that you've come across a good amount of emails from senior managers, VP and above, and have been puzzled as to why their grammar is so terrible. On the one hand, you're right. Their grammar is really terrible. It's not that there are misspellings per se, it's more about leaving out words that you wouldn't leave out, not using a period at the end of a sentence, and just a bunch of fragmented sentences and/or phrases. But in principle, the reason why they write that way is because they're well experienced and understand the virtue of brevity and focusing on the point. And that's why their writing skills, from a traditional standpoint, are, quote, poor. But in some ways, their writing style is brilliant. As I said in the introduction, people in industry don't like to be taken on a journey. Give us the destination. I mean, in general, what's better? Telling me your wonderful vacation to wherever you went, or how you got there? You'll be surprised how many people waste time by telling others how they got there. Of course, there are some exceptions and situations that I want to be mindful and respectful of, but professions such as law are not business professions, so attorneys, paralegals, etc. don't count here. When you prepare almost any type of business document, either as an email or report, deck, etc., make sure that you write it with the above in mind. Do your absolute best to get your main point as upfront as possible. This doesn't necessarily mean you want to constantly use tactics that are, quote, brochure-like. There may be some room for that at times, and there are some types of documents that I'll be discussing in this book where that would make sense. But when you're writing to your boss, for example, skip the sensationalism. It's not about that. The beauty, yes, beauty, of embracing this is that when you write clearly and effectively, your reader will want to keep reading more. When you do a poor job at getting your point across, not only will your reader not want to read anything at all, but they'll stop prematurely and won't come back to it. It's from this foundation that I decided to write this quick book. I had no initial plans of writing this book or my book on presentation skills. They both just happened naturally. I'll be covering some of the key issues that I think students as well as younger professionals can use to their advantage, such as one-pagers, getting to your point faster, using the direct method of communication, etc. Organization. As you begin to improve your business writing skills, this will all become more natural to you, along with how you'll want to organize your documents and emails. While you can organize your emails and documents in several effective ways, the idea is to make sure you do it in a way, especially for emails that have a lot of info, where people can literally run their eyes through the document and then focus on whatever they feel is necessary. The organization of your document and the elements I've included in this example are many of the issues we'll tackle in this guidebook. Take a look at this email I sent to business partners, which was admittedly a bit long. Sometimes long emails are necessary, but you can, quote, ease the pain by organizing them and making them much easier to digest. Please read the following email, and then I'll dissect how and why I organized it this way. So for you audio listeners, I'm sorry, you'll really benefit better by taking a visual look at this. And you can look at this from either the Kindle ebook or the paperback. I'm not trying to necessarily sell you a book, yet at the same time, since I'm putting this full audio book here on YouTube and you're getting this for free, I really don't feel all that guilty about this, and it really does make more sense visually. So now that you've read the email, let me dissect this for you. Many people have the natural tendency to introduce themselves in the beginning, and I completely understand that. But even though you're writing this email to people who don't know you yet, the email is not about you. At the same time, you do deserve, and it's warranted, to share a little something about yourself and credentials. The way I tackled this is to put a small bio at the end, and make a quick mention of this in the first paragraph. I think this tactic generally works. The next thing I did was think about all the things I need to discuss in the email, and then I put them mentally into, quote, buckets, and gave each a name, as you saw above in bold, with one exception. See below. Project criteria, initial steps, client profile sheet, initial client profile sheet, requested turnaround December 15th, general process, point of contact with your company, communication, and ours, logistics, contact, bio. The first thing I'd say about the above buckets is that, as you can probably decipher for yourself, are in some general type of chronological order. And that's what I'd recommend for you in general. Of course, there are exceptions. There's one element above that is a hard date request, but your elements don't need to necessarily have a date associated with them to be in chronological order. The chronological order can be date-driven or simply what you naturally need your readers to know or do first. In other words, what makes the most natural sense in terms of the overall project. Within each bucket, with the exception of the bio, you'll notice I made sure I used either bullet points or numbered points, which there's a chapter devoted to in this book. It's very important in business writing to put as many things as you can that make sense in bulletized or numbered form. It makes people absorb the content so much easier. Again, the idea is to not make your readers read, but instead scan. The one bucket that I used numbers instead of bullets was general process. I did that because, again, whether it's date-driven or not, for the most part, the information I needed to share in that section does have some natural order to it, to a large extent. Lastly, I wanted to touch upon why each bucket was placed in bold, with the exception of the bio. Again, as mentioned, the email is not about me, and I didn't want it to come across that way. So I italicized, but didn't bold bio, to help reinforce that I wasn't trying to make it about myself. Granted, there may be some subtlety to that sort of thing, but personally, I thought it was a nice touch. It's similar to how some people always close an email by not capitalizing their first name. You'll notice about 20% of people overall close their emails with their last name like this: Best, Janet, and the J is lowercase. So that's all. It's just a stylistic issue.